After this show, you're probably gonna want one of these. Cheers. Shameless. The show Shameless is based off of the UK version of the show by the same name. And fun fact, one of the writers of the original show in the UK is a co-creator of this show. It's going to be original while still maintaining a level of quality. Right off the bat from the first episode, you understand that this is a very gritty show. It takes place in the south side of Chicago, and you can just see trash everywhere, and the setting just makes you feel down and low, and it looks cold. And you feel kind of just miserable for the people who have to live there. I mean, I'm from Hawaii, so if you like living in Chicago, that's, good for you. You can really see what the creators were trying to do with the show if you look at the color scheme, which is very drab and cold and has a lot of blue spectrum. But when the show gets into the summer, it switches on its head and it's very warm and vibrant. This show is kind of like an adult version of Malcolm in the Middle. Have you ever seen that show? So if you've grown up watching Malcolm in the Middle and you want something a little bit more adult that has the same kind of family dynamics and drama, this is the show for you. So let's talk about the characters of the show. We have Fiona, and she is the mother of the entire household, and that's made very clear from the get-go. She takes care of this entire family because the mom, the real mom, is gone, and Frank, the dad, is a deadbeat drunk who can't, find his left shoe. Then you have Malcolm, Lip, who is a genius among the family but is an idiot when it comes to people. Just like Malcolm. I don't think they ever mention that, but his lip sticks out. Just a little bit like that. Lip is the bad boy. He is incredibly stubborn, and since he's one of the oldest ones in the family, a lot of responsibility is placed on him, mainly because he's very intelligent, which no one else in the family really is. He doesn't want all that responsibility, so he rebels a lot more than anyone else in the show. You have Ian next, who's gay. Ian is a little detached. You can kind of notice that in the beginning, but you see it play a much bigger part as the series progresses and as he gets older. Which I should touch on. This show spans 6 seasons, and the 7th one is coming out right now, I think. Every single character in this show gets older, and you can see them get older. You have Debbie, who's kind of the oddball of the group. Then you have Reese, Carl, who's a little psychopath. And then you have Liam, which is a little black baby living with a family of Irish people. Frank says in the very beginning of the show, he looks an awful lot like my first sponsor. And throughout the entirety of the show, it's always funny that there's just like this black baby sitting there. It just brings up a lot of interesting comedy. And lastly, you have Frank. Frank kind of serves 2 purposes. One, he is basically the villain of the show. He's always screwing shit up for the entire family all the time. He doesn't pull his own weight. He's a deadbeat drunk. We've all met a deadbeat drunk. And simultaneously, he's the comic relief of the show. You have more Three Stooges moments with Frank in this show than you do in anything else I've seen. He's pure gold when it comes to comedy. But he fucks shit up a lot. You also have Kev and V, who are the neighbors of the family, and they are also kind of a comic relief. Most of their stuff is pure comedy, and the actual drama is centered around the family. I also want to talk about a character called Mickey, but if I really say too much, I'm going to be getting into spoiler trying to make a video here, man! I also want to talk about a character called Mickey, but I can't really without spoiling some of the major aspects of the story for Ian. So to briefly sum him up, he's basically a gangster along with the rest of his family, and he goes through some of the most intense and dramatic character development I've ever seen in a show, and it's really validating to watch. So let's talk pros about this show. If you like dark humor, this is the show for you, hands down. It is so just utterly dirty sometimes. I think I heard about this show from like a top 10 shows you shouldn't watch with your parents list. I don't watch it with my parents. Like, you're thinking to yourself when you watch the show, Are they gonna go there? Are they really gonna go there? Oh shit, but yeah, they absolutely went there. So yeah, if you like gritty, grungy, like dark, usually sexual humor, this is the show that you need to watch. It also doesn't shy away from the fact that teenagers do have a lot of underage sex, and it handles it very maturely, but still in a really funny way. The show doesn't beat around the bush. Which brings me to my next point. This show is incredibly graphic. Like, you're wondering, again, if they're gonna show you something, you know, if they're actually gonna show it to you, because the show's taken it to a level already. You're like, are they really gonna show you that? Oh shit, yeah. Wow, okay. Like, you see full frontal nudity. The show doesn't shy away from showing you every single body part you've ever not wanted or wanted to see. On the flip side of that, if the show wants you to feel gritty and uncomfortable, you are going to feel gritty and uncomfortable. There are moments in the show where you're wondering, why am I watching this? It's so dark. And I don't like to use that term, oh, it's so dark. But people die, and there's blood and gore and crying, and it's just sometimes sad. I actually had to stop watching the show around the end of season 1, I think, because it got too depressing. I stopped watching it for like a month, and I went back and I'm like, I wonder where that show ends up. I started watching it again, and I was happy that I did, because the show is off-the-wall hilarious when it wants to be. There are moments in the show where the characters are having to face such weird and off-the-wall problems that it makes you, in a strange way, feel comfortable. Because if they're going through such shit and making it, you know, through it, you feel normal and you feel better about yourself. Because we've all been through a lot of crazy shit. And these people are going through really crazy shit. They have the most dysfunctional family you could ever imagine. Another thing I like is that all of these characters change a lot over time, and that they realistically break character under extreme stress. Like, you're thinking to yourself, someone could not keep themselves composed through all of this crazy shit that's happening to them. And they don't. Every single one of these characters has breakdowns that seem real and authentic with the right timing. There are a couple problems I had with the show. One of them being characters that are supposed to be heavy drinkers and live, you know, in piss poor conditions and not have that much to eat, have 6-packs and, you know, are really, you know, built really well and are super buff. I can get it with Ian's character because he's supposed to be someone who pushes himself to great extremes because he wants to be in the military and he wants to be super fit. But all the other characters, like, have no reason to look like supermodels. Also, something that I noticed about the show is that plot points are sometimes just dropped completely, without warning. They're all minor plot points, usually, but sometimes you're like, wait, we're just not gonna revisit that ever again? So that can be a little jarring, and some people might not like that. It's usually done in a way where I can tell that the creators were trying to just cut back on some of their storylines because they had too many. That's another thing. The show juggles a bunch of different characters very well, especially later on. In the beginning of the show, it's mainly focused around Fiona and all of the older people in the show. Later on, all of the younger kids get their own story arcs. And lastly, when I got to around season 5, I noticed the show was starting to become way more predictable than it should have been. And this wasn't really a problem for me, but if you're not totally invested in these characters like I was, it can be a bit of a turnoff. Alright, that concludes it for this review. Rate, comment, subscribe at your leisure, and I will see you all next week. Peace.